Hey everybody, it is your professor, your coding friend, and your long lost uncle. Today we're going to talk about HTML again. So for today, you're going to need a couple of things. First, if you go over to modules and you select homework assignment for video 3, you will see a few things. First is a link to the code. So click on this bad boy. It will take you to the starter code, and then you're going to go up to Remix and click on that, and it's going to make a new page just for you. And then you can go up into Settings, Edit Project Details, and give it a new name so that it's saved into your files. Save. Okay, and you can start editing your own code. We'll also need some images, well, an image and a video. So I'm going to teach you how to put those in websites. So here you have a frog. Right click and hit Save Image. Same thing for the video. Right click, Save Video, and put those somewhere you can get to them. All right, let's get going. So first I'm going to talk about unordered lists. So unordered lists are any times you have multiple of a thing, but it doesn't matter what order they go in. So say you have a recipe, the ingredients that are listed for that recipe, it doesn't really matter what order that the ingredients are in. That would be an unordered list. And usually you'll use those for bullet points. So to make a bulleted list, you would annotate each of those lists using the UL element, unordered list. This element has opening and closing tags. So the first one would be UL, and then at the end of the list, you would do /UL to close the tag. So that's the way that the computer knows where the list begins and where it ends and to stop pulling bullet points on things. The other thing you need to do is that for each individual item, you need to wrap it around the element list item. So the opening tag is LI, list item, and the closing tag is /LI. And that says what is underneath this first bullet, and then the next bullet, and then the next bullet. Or else it doesn't know where to start and stop. So it'll look something like this. Opening tag, closing tag, and each item is surrounded by LI. And so it'll look like this when you actually use it. It'll look like this when it's rendered on the website. So let's actually make one. Go over to your glitch file. And here I have used some elements we talked about before. So here inside of my body, I have all of my visible items. The first one is going to be my H1. Every website needs an H1, the most important, the title. And then I have an H2 for each of my individual sections, my next most important things. And then here I have some paragraph elements that talk about the different facts of sloths and frogs, but I think it would work better visually if it was an unordered list. So instead of a paragraph, I'm going to erase this P. I'm going to say UL for unordered lists, and then in the closing bracket, I'll replace that P again with UL. You may have noticed that when I was not quite done typing it, I got this little red dot off to the left. Glitch will tell you when you are making errors. It is not foolproof, but it will try to help you out. And so here, if I hover over this red, it'll say, hey, there's no starting tag for this weird thing you made. That's not exactly what the problem is, but you can tell that something is wrong. So I'll go in and finish it, and that little red dot will go away. Okay, so it knows that a list is going, so it's indented it, but I haven't said there's anything in this list yet. I need to make list items, and that's where the bullets will come in. So here for this first fact, I'll do caret, li, close caret, and it automatically created a closing tag for me, so I'm just going to cut and paste, and then do that for my other facts too. And there we go. I have a bulleted list. Nice. Okay. So what happens if the things need to be in order? Going back to that recipe, our ingredients may not need to be in order, but the order in which you cook them is important. mixing everything together and then putting it in the oven will produce way better results than throwing the raw flour, the raw eggs, and the raw vanilla into the oven and then mixing it afterwards. That will be a very weird cake. So sometimes you need to make an ordered list. It works very similarly. Instead of using UL, use OL, ordered list. And it looks exactly the same. So you have OL for the starting, /OL for the closing, and then around each item, you still use list item, LI, closing LI. And then it will look like this. In the order that you put them in, it will do 1, 2, 3, etc. So let's try it out. Inside of Glitch, here I'm going to replace these paragraph tags again for my sloth with ordered list, OL, and then down here, OL. So I have my opening, my closing tag, and then for each of my facts, again, just LI. Same business. And you can see here, as I close each of them up, they order them 1, 2, and 3. Nice. We have a much nicer looking website. All right. Images are important. There's loads of images on the web. They're way more accessible. People who are skimming through something will read the images first and then go into the text if they find it interesting. So how do you get images on the web? The image tag is self-closing. So a lot of the tags we've been using have an opening and a closing tag. What it means when it's self-closing is that you put the backslash inside of that first tag and you don't have a closing tag. It's self-closing. It has some attributes in it, which are things that go inside of the opening tag that add more information for the computer that isn't visible but is relevant to whatever this tag is. So here, this attribute here is saying, hey computer, this is something you have to source from an address and pull it in. So source is saying that the source of this image is at this address, and this address could be a folder within your computer or inside the server, or it could be on a different website, wherever it is the computer needs to go to look for it. Images also need alt text. So alt text describes the image and it's used for screen readers. So if someone is using a screen reader to view your website, they can't see the image. Instead, the screen reader will say image of, and then say your alt text. And your alt text needs to be concise because you don't want it to be, it's meant to be a fast read like an image is. It needs to be descriptive, not like an opinion of a thing. And it can't say things like a video or an image of, because the screen reader is going to tell them that it's an image, so you're just being redundant. So for our first one, an example would be like a watercolor of a frog baking. Perfect. The other thing that it does is it's the text that shows up if the image fails to load, and also it's used by search engines. So the search engine, Google, cannot see the images on the website, but it will crawl through your alt text to see what those images are. And so if someone's looking for pictures of frogs, it'll see that all of your alt text says frog, and it will pull your website up higher on the search engine. So let's add some alt text in. Again, alt text looks like this. It's ALT for alt equals quotes and then whatever the description is. So let's go in and add some alt text to our image. Oh, and also add our image. Getting ahead of myself. So to add our image in, I've put where I want the image to be, add a comment right here, add image here. So underneath that, I'm going to start off with my tag, !img for image, space, src for source, equals, parentheses, and now I need the location of my image. It's on my computer right now, so I need to get it into Glitch. And to do that, I'm going to go over to Assets on the left side. And I already have mine in here because I was testing this earlier. But for you to upload it, if you don't have it here, you can go to Upload an Asset and then find it on your computer. And then hit OK. And it will pop up in here. You can click it and hit copy URL, and then go back into index.html and hit paste. And there he is. There's your image. And I need to add in my alt text, so ALT equals parentheses, and then add a description, watercolor of frog baking, beautiful. And then I need to close it, so backslash, and then bracket, or caret. Great. And so now we have our image in there. There's one other thing that I want to talk about for images for now. A lot of the scaling and the visuals of images comes in CSS because that's the thing that does all the decorative elements. But it is important in your HTML to put the width and the height inside of your image. And the reason that you want to do that, even though you can and should also do that in the CSS, is because the HTML will load first. It's the first document that your computer is going to pull in when you source a website. And if you've ever been scrolling on your phone and you're reading something and then suddenly you're in an entirely different place on the page, that's because there was a bunch of images on that site that took longer to load than the text did. And so once those images finally loaded, it pushed everything around. And so when you put the width and the height inside of your HTML, the HTML will save space on that website so that when the images load, they slot neatly in place and it doesn't push all of the elements around once they've loaded. So it creates a nicer experience for the reader. So we're going to add width and height into our website. And I'm not looking for you should be looking at the design, how is this fitting into my website's grid system, but we're just making a stupid little site about frogs, so I'm just making the width and height equal to the width and height of the image. We're not getting fussy with it yet. You can squash and stretch images doing this way, so make sure when you're adjusting it, you're keeping the aspect ratio. Nobody likes a squashed and stretched image. So width is 201, and when you're using these numbers, they are pixels. The internet will assume that you're using pixels because that is the size of the internet. Okay, and it hasn't changed size because that's the size of the image. I just took it from the image, but I could if I wanted to. Well, don't do that. But you can adjust the width and the height this way. I'm just keeping it the OG. All right, so next up is videos. Videos are very similar. They look a little bit more confusing, but they have the same basic components. Videos do have an opening and a closing tag. The starting is video, and then the closing is /video. It has an attribute for source. Again, it has to have an address that it's pulling the video from, either from your files, from another website, wherever. It does also have width and height, so you can determine how big of a space you should reserve for that video. It also has another attribute for controls, so you can allow people to pause and play the video, or you can take that away from them. And between the tags, between the opening and closing, that's where you put your error text. If the video doesn't load, this is the text that will load instead. And so this is what it looks like all together. It seems really cumbersome, but it's not so bad. You start with video, the opening tag, source, where that video is located, the size, width, and again in pixels, and then controls to allow people to play or pause it, which is also optional, and then your error text, and then your closing tag. So let's add that in. If this is a lot and you don't want to handwrite it out and memorize it, you can just copy and paste this from the PowerPoint slide and keep some notes, and then copy and paste those code snippets. I do that all the time. I go back over to my old code that I don't want to have to retype out every single time and just copy and paste my own stuff. Notes are very helpful for that. This is a lot to type out every time. So the opening tag right here, I have my comment for add video here. My opening tag for video, and so I need to say where my video is, src equals quotes. And then I'm going to go over to assets, And if you don't already have sloth MP3 over here, you can go over to upload an asset and click on your sloth video and hit open. And then you'll click on it and hit copy URL. And now that we have the address, we can go back to index.html and hit paste. Beautiful. And now we can see our huge sloth video. It's so big. So let's adjust the width and the height so it's not freaking massive. Width equals quotes, and it's 320. And again, I calculated this aspect ratio earlier, so it wouldn't squash and stretch it. Height equals 240. If this doesn't work, make sure you're spelling everything right. That's 90% of when things go wrong. And then I'm going to hit controls. So right now you can see it's just the video, but if I put controls and then close caret, ba-bam! Now I see how long it is. I can play and pause. Beautiful. Full screen it. And it automatically gave me a closing tag, which is great. But I also want to put between it some error text. So I'm going to say video not supported. Maybe you're on an old browser or something. That way, if it doesn't show up, there's not like an awkward gap here. People know something was supposed to be there. Okay. I'm just going through my notes, making sure I got everything. All right. That's it. So today during class, we talked about ordered lists and unordered lists. We talked about adding videos and images, and in our homework, we remixed our example file. We added a bulleted list and a numbered list, and we added a frog image below our frog list and a sloth video before a sloth list. And I do know that it wasn't actually a video of a sloth, but I couldn't find a good video of a sloth. So if you have one, please share it. Maybe next year I'll replace the adorable seal with a sloth, but we work with what we got. Next class, we'll review all this stuff in a more creative exercise just to reinforce it, and I will see you guys next time.